Obedience, age 2. There are some fights you have to win. You win all dog obedience fights. Your 2-year-old should comply on the level that a German Shepherd can comply. Sit, stay, no, stop. Okay, that's what you're looking for. We used to actually run drills with our 2-year-olds. We lived on a very safe street, and we would say, you are not allowed to play in the street, but I want you to run as fast as you can to the curb. And when we yell, Audrey, stop, you are to freeze like freeze tag. And so we would just go out in the day, and I would take them out there, and they would go running as fast as their little 2-year-old legs could get. And if they got too close to the street for their own comfort, they would actually stop and look at me, like, are you going to say stop? And I said, keep going. And I would even sometimes wait till they're about that close, and I would say, Audrey, freeze. And she'd just go, stop. What was I practicing? Walmart parking lot, church parking lot. Our kids grew up in the era of the SUV vehicle. You cannot see a 2-year-old when you are driving an SUV. You can't see them. Now there were times, I don't want to yell a person's name and scare them. I want to train them that if I yell, Audrey, stop, it doesn't matter what she's doing. She will stop and freeze right there. And we used it a few times in parking lots, basically, is what we did. We would also practice stay. Stay. Because, you know, a 2-year-old, if I am needing to pay for something, I need you to stay right here. Not go wander off somewhere else, but stay right there. Now, I'm gonna win those battles. All of those, and I don't want you to think I'm demeaning kids. I want it to be simple for you. Those are the battles I'm going to win. Now, you can cry and fuss and carry on all you want to, but if I have to get that little group together, that's what I'm going to die on the hill on as a preschooler. Because then I can hand you off to another person and say, you need to do what this person says. So when this person says you need to stay sitting down at the table, you stay sitting down at the table. When this person says you need to stay on the bed and finish your nap time, you need to stay on the bed and finish your nap time. I mean, I'm going to transfer authority to another parent in front of my child so that my 2-year-old understands that this parent understands German Shepherd commands. And I'm giving permission to enforce those commands if I need to do something like that. And that really helps kids, because once kids have an environment by which they know the rules, and if those rules are transferred from environment to an environment, then your child will be much more responsible. But, on a side note, we'll just make this the door to the preschool. You've got kids coming from all kinds of environments to this church. And when they show up at this church, what rules are they bringing? They're bringing the rules of their own family. Which is why it's really, really important that everybody understand that when you cross this door right here, we now have church rules. We have Peter Buckland rules. And they might be different than your family rules, but they are going to be the rules. Every teacher, you cross this door, you now have my rules. You go to a coach, you now have my rules here. And that those rules bring conformity and order and stability to an environment. And you want to make sure that you do that. Number 2, on the next higher level, it becomes morality, or care about how our actions and attitudes affects others. That's 4 and 5. Morality. 4 and 5. Sorry, I couldn't quite read all that right there. Morality. What this means is if you walk up to a 4-year-old, well, if you walk up to a 2-year-old, and that 2-year-old wants to get a toy. If I want this, is this Pepsi? Thank you. And I grab this from you and cry for me. Okay. I'm going to look at that and go, I have the Pepsi. This is really good. I have no sense whatsoever that, what is your name?
Evan.
That Evan is even remotely distressed at all. And I'm going to just use my little Pepsi and drink and all that sort of thing. Thank you so much. But if I'm 4 and 5 and I walk up and I like grab this out of your hand and you start crying and you say, you've hurt Evan's feelings, I'm going to go, oh yeah, Evan's crying. There's a shift that begins to happen, thank you, at 4 and 5. And as a result of that, you can't teach a 2-year-old how to share. A 2-year-old can just take turns. A 2-year-old doesn't really understand that there's somebody outside of me that thinks and feels a certain way. But by the time that you get to be 4 and 5, you're going to be able to start putting that together. And now all of a sudden, you have this idea of cause and effect. If I, as a 5-year-old, slug another 5-year-old, guess what's going to happen to me? I'm going to get slugged. And so I can look at that 5-year-old and say, if you don't want to be hit, don't hit. And you go, oh yeah, that's a new thought. I believe you're probably correct about that thought. And you can begin to teach a child that his behavior has consequences. It's really cool, as early as 4. Your really smart ones, maybe your girls, can begin to do that later on in 3s, because girls' brains mature a little bit faster than guys' brains. Every girl in here knows that, because you always wanted to date somebody who was a little older when you were 13 than a 13-year-old boy. Nobody wants to date a 13-year-old boy. Ever. Ever. Because 13-year-old boys are not dateable at all, because they're just not ready. They need some more time to bake in the oven. The third one, then it then it becomes self-control. Self-control. Age 6 or 7. Age 6 or 7. Self-control. This would be self-discipline. So now you can make your own bed. Now you can really dress yourself. Now you can figure things out. Now you can begin to get your jobs done. This is where you begin to discipline yourself to be able to get things done. And so childhood is all about growing up, getting things done, figuring out what your responsibility is, and moving it forward in some way. And then the last one on here, it says, then at its highest level, it becomes altruism or service. Altruism or service. And this is going to be age 11 and 12. And this is why mission trips are the best thing in the world for your teenagers. Altruism and service is the fastest way to get into this. Your kids will behave on a mission field in ways that they will never behave for you ever at home. They will. Or for grandma, yeah. Because when they serve somebody else, you know that they have made those kinds of responsible decisions that are going on. So when you have a child who is 11 or 12 or 13 that doesn't do service, you just back this up and find out really where their responsible age is. And you can do this with adults too, but it's a little more demeaning. So let's just take adults at your place that don't do things the way that they need to. And they don't really serve. Because if I, as the boss, say, you really need to get this done, somebody really emotionally crosses their arms and says, I don't think so, that's not what I want to do. They're not at the highest level. They're not at service. They're not at service. You know that Jesus came to serve. He's at the highest level. And that's what we do, is we teach our children how to serve. They're going to have a harder time serving us as moms and dads, of course. I mean, they always do. But I want to turn my kids loose in your house to clean it. And I want you to send your kids to my house to clean it. Because then our houses will get clean. And we'll be able to determine whether or not our kids are really learning and growing. So we would actually switch kids sometimes. Because I couldn't get my kids to do it, but they'd go do it for you. Because they could serve in that way. And they just felt, oh, this is such an obligation. I have to do this all the time. But you go to some little old lady's house of this church, and you take a bunch of teenagers there, they will do the best job they can. You might want to tell her to move all of her breakables, because sometimes they kind of knock into things when they don't really mean to break things, but they will go serve elsewhere. And so you just pull it back down to self-discipline or self-control. And basically, you've got a bunch of adults that don't have self-control, self-discipline. They don't want to do it, so they're just going to stay in bed. And so that's where you begin having to relate to them. Is to relate to them on that level of self-control. Now let me tell you this, moms and dads. If you ever have trouble with your son or daughter getting out of bed in the morning, make sure that you have frozen marbles in your freezer. What you do is you just go buy a whole bunch of glass marbles, just a whole massive bundle of them, and keep them in the freezer. And that way in the morning, if your little loved one doesn't get out of bed at the right time, you can just look at them and say, there's a consequence for staying in bed. Now remember, moms and dads are supposed to be happy and pleasant when they discipline. And this is one of the happiest and funnest things to do. And so you don't care if they get up at that time. You just don't care, because you know that you have frozen marbles. And frozen marbles, what's really cool about them is that they are round. And wherever that body goes on that bed, guess what goes to that place? Every single one of those stinking frozen marbles. Now the really cool thing about frozen marbles is that they leave no wetness. So it's not like pouring water on them, and it's not demeaning that you're pouring water. You're just throwing, cold glass on them, basically, that rolls around. And so just, get like 2 or 3 bundles of them, keep them in the freezer, and, when you wake them up, I mean, we would wake up our kids in the morning or just check on them, because that's a polite, okay thing to do for the most part. And we just say, you got to be up by such and such. And I remember one time Audrey was particularly tired. We did not have set bedtimes for our kids. Even when they were little, when they were tired, they went to bed. If they weren't tired, they could stay up, but they always had to get up. That was the rule. You can't oversleep, period. So if we're doing something, you pay the price by getting up the next day. So we'd never had bedtime fusses and problems, because in the morning at such and such a time, they had to be up and ready to go. And so Audrey one time was just like going, I'm just really too tired. I said, okay, I'm getting the marbles. And I walked on out. And by the time that I got back, I mean, I went right to there. I thought, this is my chance. I'm really excited about this. I went, and I came back, and she was up and in the shower. And I pounded on the door, as a nice father, and I went, you ruined my opportunity. She just got up and went. Nobody wants frozen marbles. Now, here's what I want you to know. If you threaten them with frozen marbles, guess what you're going to get in your bed someday, parents? If you are lazy, or you don't get up on Christmas, or something happens, you can get frozen marbles. I just want you to know this thing. It is really hilarious to have a frozen marble rule. But it ends the fighting of getting up in the morning, because you cannot stay in bed with those. I mean, you can fling them out if you want to, I suppose, but you can just fling them and flip them back in. Everybody knows what's going on. So you can do that to help people be responsible. Now, when you look at this, it says, what can I do for my child in each of these areas to promote responsible behavior? And so you've got responsible to parents, society, self, and people. And there are some ideas coming up that you can use for that, that you can fill that in a little bit later. Look on page number 8, Spiritual Foundation. I have a little Bible here, but I'm going to just tell you a little bit about this. Developing responsible behavior in Deuteronomy 6, 1 through 9. This is informal responsible behavior development, informal. This is as you go. And in Deuteronomy 6, basically says when you lie down and when you get up, when you walk around and when you sit down. In the informality, you're talking and you're developing responsible behavior. In Psalm 78, you're remembering. You're remembering the good things. You're laughing about the history of your family. You're enjoying what's going on. And Psalm 78 is all about remembering God's goodness for the nation of Israel. And then Ephesians 6, 1 through 4, and Colossians 3, 21 through, I don't know, it says 21 to 21. That's interesting. Should we... Hold on a second here. Let's see what I can put down there. You know what? I've had this for a long time. Sometimes y'all think that your computer thinks it's smarter than you. 21. That should be 20 and 21. 20 and 21. This is all about the quality of the relationship that you have with your kids. This is the quality. And this is all about fathers not provoking your children to wrath, basically. Children obey. Fathers don't do something that's going to cause your kid to be wrathful. The word that's used in here is actually the word for God's wrath. And you've probably seen really angry kids screaming with eyes bulging and neck bulging for kids, and we're not supposed to do that. So, spiritual foundation.
Quality of what?
Huh?
Quality of what?
Quality of relationship. Okay, now the rest of this stuff, I'm going to have to let you just kind of look at this when we go, but these are really nice lists of some things. So on page number 9, right here, moms and dads' levels of responsibility. When you've got a child that doesn't want to do something, you can even pass this little sheet to them and say, tell me where you are on this sheet. Because self-awareness is the beginning of change. Self-awareness. So if you're really working with a child that doesn't want to do math, then you can say, I don't want to bother you with this, but I want you to see where you are with this. So what are you saying about this? And here's the responsible and here's the irresponsible kind of level. And so you can just kind of begin to talk to them about how can you grow in a particular area and reflect back to them where they actually are on kind of a chart way to see what's happening. On page number 10, if you really want to help your children to understand, I mean, they're able to process, this is really good For teenagers, you have a responsible person means. And this is what I would call a refrigerator postable. A refrigerator is the most important door in the house, except a bathroom when you're having an emergency. The refrigerator door opens and closes probably more than any other door. People are on it all the time, and whatever you put on that door, people tend to notice. So if you want to clear off a space, and you can say, we're going to spend the next month really talking about responsible behavior, and if you want to talk about mealtime, where you want to have a conversation, you could actually say, well, number one, what are some goals that we might want to have for our lives? So this is great for teenagers. What are some goals? And if you've got a real reflective elementary school kid that is thinking on a higher level, this works really well for that. And so, you know, if you have an intact family, then those kids are probably going to process a little bit faster than if you've got a family that's got a lot of chaos in it or something. So you can actually begin talking about these elements, which are going to be really, really helpful for you. Rights and responsibility, number 11. This is really good, especially for elementary school kids and moving into the junior high years, is that you will find that what's happening is that children are trying to separate themselves a little bit from mom and dad. So let me give you the biggest warning that I can. If you don't capture the heart of your child may want to throw you and your faith away. Just let that sink in. This is the scariest thing about parenting that I have noticed. When a Christian child, when a child in a Christian family gets extremely angry at mom and dad, they will want to throw their faith away. I.e., I'm not going to church with you anymore. I'm going to kick, I'm going to fuss. As soon as I can stop coming to youth group, I'm stopping coming to youth group. If mom and dad are not really dedicated, then their children will probably go do their own thing too, because the model speaks louder than the words do. The model is always stronger. So if mom and dad are not modeling responsible behavior, then the children will pick up on that and they will not be responsible either. It doesn't matter what you tell them, because they're going to comply with the model more than they're going to comply with the words. So what you're looking at, what I like about this on rights and responsibilities, is that if you've got a kid that gets all like in your face and all that about that's going on, and they're saying, well, you know, I have a right to make up my own mind. This fourth one down, I have a right to be